Nothing But the Words, episode number 136, How to Write Your Business Memoir, featuring author Anita Henderson. Hey there, and welcome to Nothing But the Words. I'm your book coach, Candace L. Davis, and I hope your week and your writing are both going exceptionally well. I am high energy and excited today because once again, I get to interview one of my friends and colleagues on this show, and this time we are talking about her professional memoir. So before I go into all the things that I personally and professionally love about Anita, I'm going to read you her professional bio, her official bio, so you know who she is. Known as the author's midwife, Anita guides C-suite executives and seasoned entrepreneurs to write, publish, and leverage their books to position themselves as authorities. As an author coach and book publishing strategist, she shares the secrets to writing and publishing a best-selling and award-winning book through her Write Your Life coaching program. Anita is the author of Becoming the Minimalist Entrepreneur, Lessons Learned from My Journey to Work Less, Earn More, and Play More. And she takes that very seriously. She does like to work less, earn more, and play more, and she still gets brilliant work done. She has gained acclaim as an award-winning and best-selling author and ghostwriter, and she is a sought-after speaker and authority on book writing and publishing. I am super excited to have her on the show today. Anita, welcome to the show.
Candace, you know I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're so welcome. So for everyone's, just so you know, this could get a little out of control because we are friends and we do similar work and we both love books and we both love writing and we both believe in the power of books. So just be prepared.
Strap on your seatbelts.
But that's okay. What I want to start with, because so many people out there are business owners and they don't know what kind of book to write. You too are a business owner. You've been a business owner for what, more than 2 decades now?
Oh, yes.
And you, the person who told me you would never, ever in this lifetime write a memoir when we first met, have written your business memoir. It's an excellent book. I think any small business owner could learn, so even actually a big business owner could learn a lot from this. Tell me why you came around to writing a business memoir.
Did I ever say I wouldn't? I've
Ma'am, you
forgotten
did.
that. I don't think I ever actually said.
The devil is a liar, people. She did say it.
Why did I decide to write this memoir? Well, one reason is that as an author coach, as you know, we need to stay relevant, right? I mean, we could tell people all day long to write a book. You need to, share your story and own your narrative. And it had been, let's see, I don't know how long since my last book, at least 5 years.
Okay.
And a lot changes in the industry and the publishing industry in a year or two. And I thought, I think I need to get myself back in the game as an author, as a published author. So that was one motivation for sharing my story. And then I guess also just to really get my story out. All of my other books, 7 or 8 of them, have all been about how to write a book, why you should write a book, how to market a book. Here's what the publishing process looks like. Turn your journal entries into a book. So it's been more instructional.
Yeah.
With a little bit of my story thrown in. And I just wanted to finally get my story out there about what it's been like for me in the last quarter century as an entrepreneur. So this one is not so much about book writing. It's more about my journey as an entrepreneur.
Well, it's not just your journey, and it is your journey. It tells a lot of her story of how she built her business, but it's a journey to work less, earn more, and play more, which I've read people's books where they talk about, oh, I work less, blah, blah, blah. And I know it's not true. I know it's not true. I know they don't. They're telling a story. They don't. They're working 80 hours a week and they're trying to tell us all we can build a business by working less. But I know you. And I know that you do work less and play more and still get phenomenal work done for your clients. How did you build that kind of business? How did you get to that?
Oh, well, it's been a journey. And as the book says, becoming the minimalist entrepreneur, I had to get there, right? It's been me for years and probably at least a decade doing all the things, right? And trying, and there's nothing wrong with that. I used to beat myself up over having tried all the things. And you and I know because we tried a lot of the things together as business partners years
Hmm.
ago. Just trying to find my niche, trying to find, what I like to do, trying to find what I'm really good at, and embracing the fact that I need to play to my strengths and not my weaknesses. I'm strengthening my strengths, not strengthening my weaknesses, right? Um, and just getting to the point that I want to like what I do. I want to love running a business because I really don't plan to go back to corporate anytime soon, as in ever.
Yeah.
So when I left my last corporate job, I had to literally decide that I'm retiring from corporate work,
Mm.
not look at a corporate job as a safety net, because that's truly a joke at this point in our time. And I just had to decide that I was going to make this entrepreneur thing, this business thing work for me. And in the figuring it out, um, I realized that I had been doing everything myself, all the things,
Yeah.
right? The marketing. I was doing my website. Oh, Lord. I was writing all of my own newsletter copy, and it was just a lot. Plus, networking, building my book of business, servicing my clients, dealing with my vendors, and all of that. And it was a lot and it was hard.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, after a while, you realize it should not be this hard. This is not even fun. It's not fun. And
Mhm.
so I just had to step back and reassess what business is, what it should be, what I want it to be, and release a lot of what I had adopted, which was what everybody else says you should do and how you should be as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think so many of us who leave corporate, I didn't leave corporate directly, but so many of us who leave corporate and build a business, whatever we were doing before, if you were working for the government, if you were teaching, and you go to build a business, you're excited about creating this freedom, right? But then we build basically another job for ourselves where essentially we are tied to a desk. We're doing a lot of work that we don't want to do, and we get stuck in that trap. So it was really interesting because I've experienced it too to read about you sort of going through that journey. And it wasn't like this straight line trajectory from, corporate worker to the minimalist entrepreneur, right? Like you took turns and twists and you share those. And one of the things I appreciate is the honesty with which you share those. You share your setbacks, you share how your personal life and family losses impacted you as a person and as a business owner. And I know that you coach people to do this, so you know how to get the words on the page. But what was it like being that open and vulnerable when it's actually you who's doing the writing and sharing your story?
Well, so it was difficult. I'll say that to answer the question, it was hard. One of the things that helped a lot was that you were my coach. You were my author coach. We spent a couple of days struggling at a beach house.
It was such hard work.
And you helped me really work through a lot of the things that I was avoiding sharing in the book, the pivotal moments, the hard stuff. It's easy to write about when it was successful and when it was fun and when the thing worked and all that, but very difficult to even think about the hard parts that were equally or even more important in the journey,
Yeah.
and explain how they fit in and how that hard stuff made me. It really did. The successes are great, but it's really those bumps and dips and all the hard stuff that really makes you know what you are made of.
Yeah.
And so I remember, so that a couple of days that we spent coaching was extremely helpful for me to really, I mean, you asked some great questions as an author coach to help me really tap into it. I'm sure I had some boohoo moments, some tears, as happens when we are structuring our story, to realize, if it touched me like that, and
Hmm.
it was years ago, then maybe it will resonate with my readers as well. So I spent a day. one day, I got through writing, I'm in the midst of writing the book. And this particular day, um, I was writing about a really difficult year that I'd had as an entrepreneur. A lot of things happened personally for me. And I was so far into writing this, like I decided that this is the whole day I'm going to write. I was so far into it that I couldn't not finish because it was so emotionally draining for me. Like I cried and I'm just like with the laptop and the tissue box, right? Writing and crying, typing and crying. And I thought, you know, I have to get through this today because I'm not revisiting this year of hell for me.
Mm,
It's really important. In the grand scheme of things, I guess, depending on how you look at it, really had nothing to do with business itself, but it did
yeah.
because it affected me in a certain way. And it was really so pivotal that year of drama that really propelled me. I was working full time as an employee at the time. It really propelled me to get back into my business full time. And so the writing of it and being so transparent was really vulnerable for me, and it was emotional. And I knew I had to get it out in a day because I was like, I'm not going to write this again. Now I obviously revisited it as I made revisions and things, but I had to get it out in the day. So it was hard to write that, but I'm glad I did. And I've heard from readers since then who have read the book and said, "Oh my God, that had to be a hard year for you." And how did you even write that? So it was difficult, but I'm glad I did.
So I will say, I just made a list while you were talking of everything I need to unpack from what you just said. I was like, there is so much juicy goodness in there. So, first of all, listener, when you read Becoming the Minimalist Entrepreneur, you will immediately know what year she's talking about. When you get to that part of the book, you will feel the pain of that year. And I'm not kidding. I mean, Anita writes in a way, and you should all be endeavoring to write in a way where you have the emotional experience with the author. Now, mind you, this is a business professional memoir for the most part, right? It focuses on becoming the minimalist entrepreneur, but we're not separate from our business as entrepreneurs. What impacts us as a person does impact us as a business owner. So, Anita, you do a brilliant job of portraying that in the book. And it is, because I know and love you, it is hard to read. So it's like, okay,
Oh,
I'm feeling the pain that my friend is feeling, but I know she's on the other side of it. I know she's better for it. But it is difficult to read, but that is the mark of incredibly well done writing, is that you can
okay.
bring the reader into the emotional experience with you. However, one of the things I know that you preach to your coaching clients is that you can write your memoir without telling all of your business. How did you, as the author, make some decisions between what you would include and what you would leave out of your memoir?
I think that came with my structure, my initial framework, my outline, and my decision to not write the book in chronological order. I'm not a big fan of chronological order memoirs. I really wanted to focus on certain aspects of myself and my life. And so certain things that happened to me in my life, they just didn't fit into the structure of the characteristics that I wanted to display in my book. So the ones that did, the events and circumstances and life events that did make it in, I had to really unpack them and look at the relevance, like how relevant is it to this particular characteristic that I'm talking about for myself? And then how much of that does the reader really need to know in order to experience or witness the character trait that I'm talking about? So as I became the minimalist entrepreneur, I became adventurous. I became my own best advisor. I became all these things. And I talk about those in the book. Well, there are certain circumstances that happen in life that helped me become those things. And so, what I wanted to get across was how those things impacted the characteristic, but not all the gory details of things. Like, for example, I mentioned that I was married before And my husband and I, we ended up getting a divorce. So no one needs to know all the things that happened and how many arguments we had and what he said and what I said. That's not important. What was important is how that impacted me as I became the minimalist entrepreneur. It wasn't about how many fights we had and all this kind of stuff. It was just about how that impacted me as an entrepreneur. So I had to really sift through the experiences, keep the stuff that was relevant and not discard because it's part of your life experience, but just set aside the rest of it. And that's what you need to do as a writer, or even if you don't consider yourself a writer, but when you're writing your book, you need to really kind of sift through and be honest with what's relevant, what's most relevant for the point you're trying to make,
Yeah.
and leave the rest of it for another time or another book. And I think that's where a coach like you comes in to help scale it down. Like, do we really need to say all this stuff? Do they need to know all the gory details, or they just need to know the thing happened and how it affected you and
Yeah.
what you learned from it?
Yeah. So one of the things you guys may have, if you're listening, you may have picked up on is that I coached Anita on her book. She is also coaching me on my book. So even though we are book coaches, we have enough experience to know you can't read the label from inside the jar. You need someone from the outside to look in, to help you figure out what you're writing about, to give you feedback on what you're writing. So we just happen to have the good fortune that we have each other so that
Yeah.
you can do that. And I want to give a shout out to Karen Crompton, a brilliant editor who also participated in this project. Tell me a little bit about what the editing process was like for you, because you are so used to being on the other side of this. You give that kind of, constructive feedback to your own coaching clients, and now you're on the side of receiving it. What was that like?
It was great. Again, that was another reason why I wrote the book. I needed to, again, sort of sit in my client's seat.
Yeah.
I need to walk in their footsteps. And having coached dozens of people, I know what it feels like to turn that manuscript over, that first sloppy draft, and feel like, ugh, it's incomplete, or this sucks, or whatever, right? We've all been there. All of our clients have been there.
I'm only laughing. I'm
Um,
sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm only laughing because your first draft was not sloppy. So it's like, so sorry, but it
it
wasn't.
was
But go
sloppy
on.
to me. It was sloppy to me, right? I'm like, I'm missing some things. I know it's not perfect, but I'm
Yeah.
tired of trying to put the pieces together. This is the time to let it go.
Yeah.
And I trusted, like you saw that first draft. Karen Crompton helped with subsequent edits. And I trust you both that, just in general, with work, we've worked on many projects together, but certainly with my story, and to know that you are just the consummate professional. You know your stuff. And you're not going to allow me to put out something that's subpar. So I trust you. I trust your knowledge and your insight, and that helped it be much easier just to turn it over and to allow you to work your magic with my manuscript and make it better. That's what the editing process is about. It's making it better. It's improving it. It's helping to clarify the concepts. I knew what I wanted to say, but did it come across that way to you? That's why you need an outside voice and some outside eyes to say, I think what you mean is this, or I think you skirted past this a little bit. You need to dig deeper.
Yeah. And you don't just do that with one round of feedback either. Like it's just, if you really want to produce something great, which you have produced something great because you were willing to come back to the page more than once to get it to the level of what you wanted to publish. But you made a really good point. Part of it was trusting the people on your publishing team, like we were a part of, and there are other people on her publishing team, the designers and the people who actually put it to
Right.
print. Like she has a full publishing team to get this book out to the world. How would you say to someone who doesn't know you, they don't know me, they don't know an editor, how can they look for that kind of relationship where they can start to build a team they can trust?
Ooh, I think first of all, I mean, where else would you start other than with Candace, I mean, you're listening to this podcast. Why would you go anywhere else for starters? I mean, so much of any team building is relationship.
Yeah.
So if Candace is not your person, she can give you some references. And she's just got, contacts and connections and knowledge all over the place. So start with someone you know and
Yeah.
trust. If it's not Candace, then talk to a friend or a colleague who is a published author who had a good experience and likes the output, the outcome, right? Who likes their finished product, and find out who they worked with.
Yeah.
Um, to me, that's much more valuable and helpful than Googling. um, and certainly it makes sense to talk to someone who has had the experience and has enjoyed and appreciates their end result. You can talk to a lot of people out there who've published books and they're got all the complaints and they've had all the nightmares and all that. Then maybe you can talk to them too, so you'll know who not to use and what not to do. But you obviously want to work with and consult with some people who've had a good outcome and a good experience.
Yeah, it's so interesting because when we met, and I think I may have said this in your intro, we met because you were teaching a workshop about writing your book. I happened to be in the audience because I had just moved to Atlanta and a friend gave me a ticket. And one of the reasons it was easy for me to trust your expertise is that I could see your clients' testimonials and that they had gotten really good results from working with you. Before I even got to know you, I could see that.
Yeah.
So if I was, reading Reddit and they all talked about, some terrible book coach, might, have see some red flags and stay away, right? That is not the case. What I see is if you look up Anita, you will see her clients love working with her and they are getting results from their books. So I think that is brilliant. Now, you mentioned our time away at the beach where we escaped to work on our books, which we both believe deeply in writing, getting time away to write. We believe in writing retreats, so much so that sometime soon, pay attention to this podcast, follow Anita on social media, be on my email list, follow me on social media because we will be hosting a writing retreat in the coming months. Talk a little bit about like what's valuable about that to you. You're an experienced writer. Why do you even want to do that? Why do you need that for your process?
Why do you need to get away to write?
Yeah, what's good about it?
Oh, where do I begin?
It
I'm
is.
a traveler anyway, so just tell me to we're gonna go somewhere and I'm ready, right? And then tell me to go write something, and I'll offer that too. I think there's something about having a fresh environment to give you a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
I've had clients go to the cabin and
Mm,
write to get away. I've had them go to the beach house to get away. Some people have rearranged specific rooms in their homes to make it their writing cave, more comfortable, secluded from the rest of the house and the family. So if actually going somewhere else to a different locale is not the thing for you for whatever reason, then create your own writing space at home. Um, set the scene. You and I talk about this all the time. Put on a candle or set the lighting in such a way that it's cozy and comfortable for you. Put on your playlist, burn the scented candle, get your favorite tea or coffee, get in your snuggly clothes or whatever it takes, right? Close the door, open the window, whatever you need to do, but set the scene, make your writing space a retreat
yeah.
in and of itself. But for us, having gone away to the beach, we just needed a trip. We liked the beach,
We
and
did.
we were both working on a book at the same time, and we needed each other's support. So it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. We got some writing done, but most of it was coaching.
Yeah.
And just even in that, just getting away to have a discussion about the books we were writing was just refreshing. It really, really is. It's just the same thing that travel does for me. Um, and I always call it travel, not vacation, because I'm not vacating some terrible lifestyle that I have. I live a wonderful life, but it's just nice to go on a trip and have some new experiences. And the same thing is true. It really invigorates your creativity. and just gives you a fresh perspective on on getting back into your writing and making progress. Just feels good.
It feels great. And I have a completed manuscript that Anita texts me periodically, probably weekly, to say, when are you publishing it? So I got a completed
I'm
manuscript out of
waiting.
that. It's coming. Don't worry. Don't worry. But so you mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned sort of the fresh environment, the space to write without all of the world around you, and also coaching. You have been coaching people to write books for quite some time. You're not like the newbie on the block here.
Mhm.
So, what is it that you value from both sides of that relationship? Why book coaching? So many people think it's just writing a book. I should be able to do it by myself. What do you as a book coach and as an author value about book coaching?
Ooh, I think it's the same thing that people value about any kind of coach. That it's a fresh perspective, first of all. It's instructional, right? None of my clients are writers, and some of yours might be, but they don't know the elementary aspects of, everybody know we all write every day,
Sure.
right? Whether it's an email or whatever, we know how to string words together to make a sentence. Some of us know how to make a paragraph out of that and a page out of that. Um, but it's much more in depth and detailed when you're writing a full length book. And if that is not your training, you're not trained as a writer in either fiction or nonfiction or poetry or whatever, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to just wrap your mind around. So to have a coach, someone who is experienced, to come in and say, there's a process to this. And it can be either hard or it can be easy. Let me help make it easy for you.
Yeah.
There's some structure that goes into it. When we get that structure and that framework started, it's easier to write. When we have a formula where we can plug in common topics and content in each chapter, that makes it easier to write chapter to chapter,
Yeah.
right? When you have someone to talk to and talk through your content and stories that you want to tell, that makes it easier because for some people, talking out their book content or some of it is easier than sitting down with a pen and a notepad or with a laptop or a tablet. Sometimes it's easier just to talk it out. And with that talking, it may be easier to talk to someone. So that is helpful. It's also helpful to have a coach who understands what publishing a book really means, because a lot of people don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Um, and it has changed over the decade and a half since I've been doing this, and it continues to evolve, the whole business and industry of book publishing. And so there are certain aspects that can become very meticulous in the process. They should be, the editing aspect of it, for one. Um, Also, what is it? How do you get your book up there online?
I
How does
agree
it
with the
show up?
world. Like,
Right? How does that happen? How do I get my book up on? How do I make a book cover? Well, of course, I'm telling you, you shouldn't be doing that unless you're a graphic designer. But how do I make my Word document that I'm typing in look like the pages of a real book,
yeah.
right? With the fancy fonts and the flourishes and the images. And, how do I do that? How do I get a copyright for my book? How do I register it? Like all these things that my clients personally, they don't want to do all that stuff. They want to work with someone else who knows how to do that. And that's the value of working with me as a coach.
Yeah.
And that is also the value that I looked forward to working with a smart team. Like I already had my team built. These are people that I work with all the time. And so I'm like, here, Candace, it's time for you to take a look at my book again.
Go do your
Here,
job.
Karen, it's time to edit. Here's the graphic designer doing the cover,
That's
the layout,
right.
and all these things. Yeah. So again, as the minimalist entrepreneur, I know that even for my book project, I shouldn't be doing all the things, even though
Yeah.
I know how to do them.
Yeah. 100%. One of my clients, Jessica Bantam, she wrote Design for Identity. It's a beautiful book. She just won an award for book cover design. Now, here's the thing. She's a designer. She did not try to design her own book cover because she's not a book cover designer. She has an eye. She knows what she likes. She has her own brand. And she, as you said, she went to her team, not me. I'm a coach. I'm not a designer. She went to the
Right.
designer on her team to say, hey, can we do this brilliant book cover? They collaborated, and it should be a collaborative process with every member of your team, and came up with a brilliant design that was award winning. But one other thing that you said that I thought was so important is, you know, most people don't write books for a living in our clientele, right? It's not what they do. They're executives, they're coaches, they're speakers, etc. Right? Most of our clients. You and
Mhm.
I are trained writers. We have developed our own processes for writing a book, and we still needed our team, and we still needed the coaching relationship that we have with each other. For me, it's accountability for one, y'all, because she's not going to let this slide, but also having the thinking partner, because you can so easily, you already know what you know, what you know, what you know, like you
Mm.
already know that, and you can so easily block yourself from sharing your genius without that thinking partner. I think that to me has been an invaluable part of having my own
Absolutely.
coach.
One of the things you added to my book that I wouldn't have thought to do was you said, I need to know what a day in the life of the minimalist entrepreneur looks like. And I was like, girl, that is so boring. Why would I put that in there?
Not boring to me. Like I'm striving for minimalist entrepreneur.
Okay, I'll write that. I would never have thought to do that. You're like, I want to know what it looks like. Like, what is your, no, I mean, everybody's day is different from day to day. But when I wrote it, it was kind of fun. I was like, it sounds boring, but it's the freedom, right? That
Yeah.
comes with being minimalist, being an entrepreneur, being your own boss. It doesn't always look fancy and sexy and lovely, but it also doesn't look stressful in meetings back to back and you got to deal with your boss and all this kind of stuff. Here's what it looks like for me.
Yeah.
Now, your version of entrepreneurship may look totally different, but because my coach, Candace L. Davis, said, I want to know what your day looks like as a minimalist entrepreneur, I put that in there and it was fun to write.
Yeah, you might think it's boring because you have it. But for those of us, I'm not there yet. Like I'm in still in process of getting to minimalist entrepreneur status. And it is my goal. Like that is the kind of business I want to have, not there yet. So for me, it's actually inspiring. What's boring to you is super inspiring to me because, as you said, it's that time freedom. It's that
Yeah.
time freedom. You're not chained to your desk. You have more flex. Y'all, she shows up for her clients, so don't misunderstand us, okay? Like she does the work, but you have designed your work so that you have the flexibility to travel and to do, and you can take your work with you sometimes, but you have that flexibility. So what might be boring to you, my friend, it's like that's goals for some of the rest of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree with that now. I'm just saying I wouldn't have thought to put it in there if not for you.
I'm glad it's in
Thanks,
there.
hon.
So on the retreat, we talked about it wasn't primarily writing for us, it was primarily coaching. But you did have to do the writing. Like
Yeah.
this is not a pamphlet. This is like a, I don't like those pamphlet books. This is like an actual book.
Actual book.
Yes, it's not a
It's
War and Peace because we don't
it's
want that.
200 and over 200
It's
pages.
like a whole book. And so you did the writing. Did you ever, and you know how I feel about this term, but I'm going to ask you anyway, did you ever have to contend with the dreaded writer's block during that process?
I I guess so. Yeah, we don't care for that term. Uh, I wouldn't say I struggled with writer's block. I No, I don't know that I got stuck, that I just couldn't write anything. I think I was just, it took some time in different sections of the book to get the story right,
Yeah.
to get the story right. And in those moments, I released the need to be so literary and so fancy, and I just wrote it. Like, okay, and I'm a writer, I'm a typer outer. So I'm not a handwriter and I'm not a voice record person. So it was almost like put the blinders on and just type. Like if I were explaining this to someone in
Yeah.
an email, and it was just like run on sentences and no
Yeah.
capitalization, no punctuation, like all of that. Just get it out of the head, Anita, right? And that's how I conquered those stuck moments, right? Those moments where I was trying to explain something or describe a point or whatever. Just free write and just,
Yeah.
attack the keyboard and fix it later.
And just get it out there. Yeah. But
Yeah.
the point was that you didn't stop. You
No,
kept
ma'am.
going because you could have easily have said, well, it's not coming easily. So I guess I don't have inspiration right now. I'll wait until I have the inspiration for that heart.
Mm-mm, mm-mm. No, I didn't. I made a commitment to myself. So I'll tell you honestly that my deadlines moved
Yeah.
further and
Mine
further
too.
out as time went on. You
Sure.
understand that when we have clients whose books we're trying to get out, that comes first, right? That became priority for me. But in the midst of writing, life happens, in your personal life, things go on. And I had gotten through, so first draft, Candace took a review, looked at the next draft. And then it was time for me to send it to my beta readers, my test readers. And as soon as I sent it off, maybe a week or two, I had an event occurred in my life that stalled everything. My mom
Mm.
had a stroke.
Mm.
Honey, that blew my whole timeline out of the water. My book just, thankfully I had already sent it off to my beta readers. So they were taking a look at it and giving me their feedback. But even once they sent that back to me, there was nothing I could do with. I couldn't even think about my book. It
Yeah.
was like, okay, whatever. It'll get done whenever it gets done. I had to focus on my mom and her recovery. So yeah, you can set the timeline. It's kind of like how people say, "Oh, you got plans for your life, and God has, a different plan for you." But it never was "Oh, I guess I'll never finish my book"
Right.
kind of thing. It was like, "Okay, I'll get back to it when I get back to it." And I knew, because I know that there is a process to this, I knew what was next, right? So it's gone to my test readers, and now I need to address their recommendations. And when I get around to doing that, I will do that because I know what comes next then is this next phase. So I moved the project forward as best I could at a creep, but it did move forward, and it was months before I got back into it full time. Uh, but, life happens along the way. When you're committed and dedicated to finishing what you start, you don't let even something as serious as an illness of your own or, a loved one stop you.
Yeah.
You gotta finish.
Yeah. And I love that you didn't like freak out or beat yourself up because you had these temporary delays. You took care of your priorities, always knowing that your manuscript would still be there and that you were committed to getting back to it. So
Yeah,
I think that's
you
brilliant.
gotta keep going.
You got to
Gotta
keep
keep
going.
going.
So you did keep going. You published. Did you publish? What month did you publish?
January. I published in January of 2024, the week of my birthday, and it
That's a
was
great birthday
awesome.
present. That's a great birthday present. So it's been what, about 6 months, 7 months since you published. What have been sort of the biggest, I'm going to say, benefits or results that you have gotten from freshly publishing this book? It's not her first book, but it is her first non how to book. What's been the benefit of getting this one out there?
Well, just the satisfaction, first and foremost, of having done it and done it well. I'm super proud of my memoir. It looks good, it reads well. I've gotten great feedback from readers. I will tell you from a measurable perspective with a dollar sign in front of it, that's my entrepreneur speaking, is that probably about 2 weeks after my book launched, I was contacted by a gentleman who said, I want to do a book strategy session with you and talk about, I've got this book idea that I'm working on. I want to get my book done. He says, as people contact you who you don't know, you're like, well, how did you hear about me?
Yeah.
I asked him, and he says, well, I saw you post on LinkedIn about your book just came out, and I actually read your book and I really like it. Like I could read a lot of the things resonated with me. I could totally relate to a lot of the content in your book and I love it. And because I read your book, because I saw your posts, I purchased your book. And because I read your book, I want you to help me write my book. And that was like, oh my God, it was like 2 weeks after the book launched. And he has become a client. And the value of his the value of his engagement with me, it 5x'd my investment in my book publishing.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that just one more time, just in case anyone had missed it?
5x. 5x my investment in my book publishing
Yeah.
with one client 2 weeks after my book launched.
And
So,
so
from
just
an
so y'all know,
entrepreneur's perspective,
yeah, Anita pays
that's
for her team. Like just because she knows people doesn't mean they work for free. Like she has paid everyone on their
part
team.
that you didn't do me a favor
Right. This
by
is money.
editing my book.
Like,
I paid you.
she paid. She paid everyone involved in this
And I paid Karen and I
right.
paid the cover.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it was an investment.
it was an investment. Yeah,
And in two
I
weeks you
walk the
paid it back.
talk. I don't expect for people to pay me to help them with their
That's right
book.
there. So Anita, you 5x your investment in your book, but people need to know that just because you know people in this industry doesn't mean that you got free services. Your investment in your book was real. You paid for these services.
It was real. I paid you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I paid Karen. I paid the cover design. Like everybody who was involved in the production of my book was paid. No
Yeah,
one did me a favor,
right.
right? Other than just being awesome was the favor. But I know that I was working with professionals just like my clients do.
Yeah,
And so professionals deserve to be paid. And so, yes, I made a dollar investment, not just my time, but dollar investment in the production of my book. And to 5x that within 2 weeks after my book launched was huge.
that's
And
amazing.
that is a great example of what I tell my clients, which is that it's bigger than the book.
Yeah,
It's bigger than, and we all want to sell a million books and we want to make $1 million and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. But you're probably not going to do that on book sales alone.
right.
Like there's more tied to the success of your book than just book sales. And so for me and for you and for a lot of people we work with, they realize that that book can be tied to paid speaking, to more clients, consulting opportunities, all kinds of things that have a bigger dollar value.
Yeah,
And you've heard me say this before. What would you rather have? A $25 book sale or a $250 an hour client? A $2,500, speaking honorarium or a $250,000 contract? What do
yes.
you want?
Yep.
You can have them all,
You can have them
and
all.
your book can be a great impetus to get it started. But don't stop at the $25 book sale.
Right.
Understand that it's bigger than the book and you can have more.
Right. And so many of our clients do that. I don't know that so many of them 5x in 2 weeks. So I think that is amazing. And like you need to be screaming that from the rooftops. But
I was.
I would be too. But so many of them do that. I mean, I have clients that actually give their book away so much at the right events because they sell people into a $30,000 mastermind with that book. So the cost of printing the book, $5 for them, probably less because they're buying in bulk,
Mhm.
leads to a $30,000 mastermind client for them. So
Yeah.
it's totally worth it for a business owner to make the investment to do the book well. Because if your book had not been good,
Yes.
you would not have gotten that client. Like,
He would not have contacted me. He would
no,
have been like, "This is the crappiest book I've ever read." I don't even want. I want my money back.
he would have left you a one
Yeah,
star Amazon review and went on about his business. Like,
exactly. So that felt good. That was one great, as I say, measurable result. But again, the feedback I've gotten from readers has been great.
yeah,
Um, invitations to speak have come in, which is wonderful. And you and I talked about this. You're like, "Are you going to do any speaking when the book comes out?" And I'm like, "No, girl, I don't want to do that." Says
but
the
she's doing
introvert
it.
in me.
But she's
I
doing
am
it.
doing it. I'm doing it. Podcast interviews like this, which has been great for visibility. So I certainly appreciate being here. But those kinds of things are really, really good. And
Yeah,
it's helped me just, again, going back to one of the initial reasons to write the book, staying relevant as an author coach.
yeah, 100%. So, what's next for the Minimalist Entrepreneur? What kind of things do you have on the horizons? How long will you be promoting your book? I mean, it's been out for 6 months already. What are you going to do with it?
Aren't you tired of promoting it by now? It never ends. Like I've written this memoir about some aspects of my life and my business journey. That doesn't change. So it quite frankly is evergreen. I've written about things that have happened already.
Yeah.
And how they've impacted my journey to this point. So there may be another memoir in here somewhere. I don't know. But I will say that business continues to expand, which is wonderful. I get to keep helping smart people write and publish their books. Yes, I've got some speaking opportunities upcoming. One of the marketing strategies that I've adopted is guesting on podcasts like this. So that has been fun. Gives me an opportunity to talk about the book, but also about my business and just about life as an entrepreneur and the fact that we get to choose how we entrepreneur, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You get to choose it and really liberating people from the burden of feeling like they have to do it, like there's only one way
Yeah.
to be successful.
Yeah. If you are listening to
Yeah.
this podcast and you have a business or you want to have a business, pick up Becoming the Minimalist Entrepreneur. You can order it online where everybody gets their books these days, for better or for worse, from Amazon. You can get a copy of the book. And what I like about it is it really is, we don't need permission slips in our life. I know that. But it gives you permission in the sense that you can see someone else who did business their own way so that you don't feel trapped in what everybody's screaming online. You have to do this, you have to do that. You got to have funnels, you got to have 2,700 products, you got to do all of this. If that's your thing, then go ahead and do it. But I feel like this book is a love letter to entrepreneurs that really releases them from those kinds of boundaries and restrictions and allows them to do their own thing and still be a successful business owner.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So before you go, where is the best place for people to find you?
Well, find me at writeyourlife.net. That is my website. You can connect with me there. And then I hang out on LinkedIn quite a bit. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Anita Henderson, the author's midwife.
She is on LinkedIn quite a bit. She posts a lot of good content on there about publishing and writing. So if you want to know more about that, find Anita Henderson on LinkedIn. And all of her contact information will be in our show notes and in your podcast app note. I hope you have enjoyed this conversation. I know we're friends, so we kiki and we giggles, but hopefully you got some value out of this conversation. That is all for this week's episode. Thanks for listening to Nothing But the Words. I'll see you next time.